Meeting to order. I need a roll call, please.
Boyd.
Here.
Nelson.
Here.
Ebelthwaite.
Here.
Grayson.
Here.
Ashante Alexander.
Here.
Gertis.
Here.
Mosley.
Here. We'll start off by being led in prayer by Dr. Alexander and pledged by Zach Grayson.
Let us pray. Father God, we thank you for this day. We thank you as servants of our city that we have one more opportunity to serve. We ask, oh God, that you would open our hearts and our minds to see, to hear, to understand the needs of all of our citizens. Bless those men and women who give themselves for the service of our city, our state, and our nation. We thank you and ask for your continued blessings. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen. Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I have a couple of citizen comments. Got my little timer here. We'll have first up is Sherry Payne.
I realize I have only 3 minutes, so I'll be brief. This is my first time to attend a city council meeting. I'm thankful to be here. I'm retired finally, and so I want to know what's going on and help in any way I can. Thank you to all of you who serve our city. I'm really interested to find out what goes on and how our city is run. I'm here tonight because I've heard some things about Onward Chickasha that concern me, and I know everyone in this room probably knows more about it than I do. But my goal is to find out more about it and to learn, is it really a good thing for our children, for our grandchildren? And is it something God would be pleased with? As far as I'm concerned, number one priority is that we don't do anything that brings dishonor to God. And so I'm not saying that it is. I just want to know more. And so I plan to investigate, to learn more about it. And when I do that, if what I learn is, wow, this is absolutely wonderful, I will come back and say that. But I do have some concerns. So I'm going to be looking, and there are others of us that are going to be studying this plan and looking at it to see, is this truly a good thing for our community? So that's the reason I'm here, to let you know we're interested in what you're doing. We want to help you do what's right. That's all. So thank you
very much.
for listening.
Thank you.
I told you we really don't respond back, but you may want to speak with Rachel Burnish, our assistant city manager. That's under her purview, the Onward Chickasha is.
Okay, thank you.
Next, I have a Charlie Burris. Can we read out Charles Edward?
Thank you, Mayor Chris. Charles Edward, Charlie Burris, 201 St. James Place in Chickasha. I do prefer Charlie, and I'm sensitive about that. So, as a longtime Chickasha citizen, I have a lot of concerns. Many of you I've not reached out to. Some of you I've interacted with, and I want to thank you for your service. I don't envy a position in this room. City staff, anybody with the community. I have a love for Chickasha. Chickasha is my home. I raised a family here. I've been in business here. I've volunteered here. I've contributed here. I worship here. So 3 minutes doesn't give it justice to talk about the concerns I see in our community right now. And I feel like mostly I see unrepresented citizenry. I see the interest of a few on volunteer basis, a few on economic basis, a few on community basis, driving our community forward on matters and neglecting the basics of what a city should do. What about us? What about our town? Within the last 2 years, I've interacted in communities nearby and noticed the little town of Marlow have an overlay project that would equal more than we've done in Chickasha in 10 years. Not many months later, it happened in Rush Springs. And not too long ago, on a trip back from Southwest Oklahoma, I see the most beautiful paving job in Apache, Oklahoma, and I just drool over it. When I first moved here, you were considered lucky if they paved a quarter of your block. There were different times, and the city was in pretty good financial shape somewhat after those times. But I believe there's a lot of neglect to the citizens' concerns. And as I visited maybe with you, Mayor, just recently about, okay, so the citizens come in and we can talk 3 minutes, but we can't really interact with you like we once did. I guess it was about 2017, the last time I came to council. I feel like that layer of insulation between the citizenry and the decision makers in our town is too thick.
We just can't take action on anything.
Not
So,
asking
if
for
say
any
the road-
action.
We can't say we can pave this road, we can't take action that way.
Thank you for that. I'm here to encourage you and support you, but also let you know I'm disappointed in a lot of things about our community when we don't put our citizens first.
What was the other community you mentioned? You said Marlow, Rush Springs, and Comanche? Apache.
Apache, I don't know how much I didn't lace the town of Apache to see how much they got done, but I'm thinking, yeah, I saw the guys out today, and I appreciate those workers doing what they do, but we're not seeing anything like that to other communities. Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Charlie.
Thank you. Charlie. Thanks, Charlie.
Council communications, I want to do the proclamation first before we get into everything else. So it's supporting Operation Greenlight for veterans. We're asking all veterans to please stand up and come to the front of the bench. Maybe you too.
I know.
And you and Dr. Alexander. Dr. Alexander's one to dress appropriately.
He always, you know that song, Sharp Dressed Man?
Yeah, that's him. You want to describe what Operation Greenlight's all about?
Yeah, I remember. No, it's an initiative to spread awareness for the challenges that veterans in our country face. Basically, it's showing support by simple as veterans having a green light or sports walk from the month of October through Veterans Day. And so that's really what it's about, is just spreading awareness and moving forward and trying to do the best we can for all veterans.
It's a nationwide action driven by the county governments, right?
Yeah, Grady County is really driving forward with this, and so that, I can't remember what they call them, green light counties, and Grady County is one. And it basically says they step forward and pledge support for this initiative.
Guys, I appreciate it. Gentlemen, thank you for your service. Thank you. Except by me. Okay, council communications.
Yes, Mr. Mayor. I guess my purpose in speaking now is for clarification and just some sense of, one, to agree with the gentleman who spoke, but also to note that my concern and even some opposition to some issues is not because I don't believe in fair in government or business developing. My concern is the fairness of it. How we are concerned about the equity for the entire city. And how do we come to feel and present an attitude that every person in Chickasha matters, And if they decide to want to be here, there's a place for them to be here. I don't feel that we do a good job of it. I think that at times I felt isolated. I felt sometimes even intimidated or even ignored by concerns that I've tried to present as a council member. My concern about service is about the fact that as a citizen, I wanted to give not only my part, but my perspective of how we can make our city better. And that requires asking tough questions that we may not want to deal with. But by dealing with these questions of race, class, the haves and the have-nots, we become a better city. You know, when the news, well, not only with this city manager, but when many city managers come, well, I've heard it said we want somebody who's a good fit. And when I hear that, I'm often thinking in terms, does that mean someone who will do as they're told, or someone who will challenge us to be better? Someone will challenge us to look beyond where we are comfortable, but become the city that we all can say it matters. A couple of months ago, I went to Walmart and there was a Monopoly game about Chickasha. I was insulted by that game because nowhere did it refer to any brown, black, Chinese restaurants, businesses in our city. And I'm saying that as we look at our city, it shouldn't be just me that wants a view of our city as a whole, but we should have persons who are trained to understand that's what we do. That's what great cities do. They look at themselves and understand where we are as a city. Now, I know that for some people, what I have to say seems radical, it seems racial. One lady asked me a few weeks ago, why are you always talking about race every time I turn the radio on about the council meetings? One, I don't always do that, but the reason I do that is because I have seen Confederate flags drove up and down the streets. I've seen that here. I brought it to the attention of the mayor. I've heard the comments. I have seen how where I live, things are often ignored, and the gentleman is correct. We seem to kind of ignore things for some and jump on other things for others. And I only bring that up because as a citizen of this city, and my family's been here a long time, as a citizen, as a person who believes in the city, working in the schools, in the state, this is my home too. And I don't feel I have to take second place to folks because they got all the money or whatever, or influence. That my perspective does matter. And I'm just saying that I'm not against business. I just want fairness, transparency, and where people know folks are not being played on. I love Chickasha. Thank you.
Thanks, Dr. Ray.
Thank you.
Mayor, I got a couple of comments, and I don't know, Georgianne, if they had contacted you, they were in your ward. Individual has rentals on both sides of him. They never leash their dogs. Their dogs are running out. They're mean dogs. He can't, like if his grandkids are there, they can't go out in the front yard. He had to put a fence up in his front yard, which is not attractive at all. He doesn't like it. But in order for them to be able to go out in front at all to play, I mean,
What street, I didn't get a call, what street are they on?
I can't remember. It's over kind of near the water towers there in that.
By Country Club and 23rd or something, 25th?
No, the central ones.
The 11th Street?
Yeah,
By the
yeah,
cemetery?
around 11th and maybe Florida, somewhere in there.
Okay.
But the dogs, I mean, and the dogs running loose, they're bad. I mean, I don't know. My wife saw 7 of them running down 7th Street. I guess they counted what street it was and said, let's get 7 of them, let's go. And they went down 7th Street. I mean, that's pretty.
7 loose dogs.
7 loose dogs. And I know our dog, the dog catchers wouldn't, I know they're busy.
You know what time of the day that was?
No, it'd be in the middle of the day, I'm sure, but, I mean, it's pretty crazy. In fact, we got one right now that My wife's afraid it'd get hit, so she threw it in the garage, and I'm like, when are we getting rid of this dog? So, I don't know whose it is, but it's a tame dog. It's look like a little bully dog.
I think it's your dog.
No, it's not our dog. My dogs are in the backyard. So anyways, I mean, I know they're busy, but,
Yeah, that'd be like a police question
Yeah, I've not
On,
been contacted.
on the animal control and such. But yeah, I know what you're talking about, loose dogs. I mean, so when I run, I carry mace, just for that reason.
yeah, it's pretty bad. But anyways, that's it.
Okay, thanks, Oscar.
Mayor, I got a couple questions tonight. I wanted to ask the city manager about some work that was being done, some evaluation on the municipal pool, and to see what the status is on the findings of the contractor that did the evaluation, and see where we're going with the findings on that.
We've received a report from the consultant. There's a lot of challenges with that pool of being able to maintain it and continue to use it. It was usable this summer. It's been the last few years kind of a summer by summer basis of whether we can actually open it. We've got some significant improvements that we need to make if we're going to do it, and those are going to be expensive changes. I expect that we need to bring that before the council and have a discussion with the council what you want to do. We have not materialized a formal plan or proposal yet to make a recommendation. I know we've talked and would like to schedule a work session on parks in general, but whether the swimming pool is included in that discussion or a separate one, we still need to have that discussion and make plans for what we're going to do to either fix or not the park or the pool at Shannon Springs.
Parks, pool, and Lake Chickasha.
Right.
Okay.
So are we still waiting for a final evaluation, or do we have it?
We have it.
Okay.
Yeah. I'm happy to share it with you. We just haven't presented it formally to council.
Is that something that you think we can bring up in the
Bring it
next?
at the next meeting if you, yeah.
Okay, that was one of my
Have
concerns.
like a council communication thing that we can present it then? Okay.
Sure.
Another thing, I wanted to follow up on a couple other things. September 18th, we had agenda item 6B, regards to the approval of the grant funds to Roberto's. Do we, shortly after that, that building went up for sale and is sold now. I guess there's another entity that's bought it. Is that correct?
Yes.
I don't know that it's closed, but I think that transaction is at least in play if it hasn't closed.
So that night, there was an approval for the grant for $83,400. What happens to those funds then?
It didn't get approved.
That was only
not get
to
approved.
say that it was eligible. It wasn't a disbursement of funds.
Right.
Yeah, the EDC has not brought that back for consideration for the council to approve funding yet.
I was just wondering what happens to that property changes hands, so that kind of, puts in question the grant program and the
Correct.
funds for that.
Yeah.
So curious about that.
Fair enough.
Last thing I had was, if I could get, maybe you could answer, or a city attorney could answer an issue about where does the city stand on the issue of the EDC, like compliance with Open Meetings Act and their public requests for information, and it's been some months now, but I still hear some grumblings from the citizenry about not being in compliance. Does the city have a position on whether they are subject to the Meetings Act? I thought we had a determination on that.
I'll respond first, but certainly allow legal counsel to respond as well. We had taken the position that we believe that the EDC was subject to the Open Records Act. Their attorney advised them that from a technical legal perspective that they may not be subject to that. So the discussions that we had with them over the summer essentially required them to provide us with certain pieces of information, which they have done. And so there's the technical legal question, which only probably could be resolved through litigation, because there is legitimate professional disagreement amongst the legal profession about whether they are technically required or not. So rather than choose to litigate that issue, we negotiated or had that discussion with the EDC board, the executive committee, to ensure that they were compliant with all necessary disclosures that the city needed to understand from a transparency type perspective what money they were spending of the cities, how they were spending it, how it was being used. And they have been providing regular updates of that information. They're providing us with their check registry so we know where every dollar is spent. And to my understanding, they have been functionally compliant with the Open Records Act, even though they may not technically be required to, if that's correct. And I certainly invite Amanda to speak to that as well.
There are differing legal opinions. As the city manager has stated, the city's opinion is that they are subject to that. They do have their own counsel. The city does not represent them. So at this point, there is a legal dispute as to that.
But the contract we have requires every month, every receipt, every check, every statement be submitted back to the city of Chickasha for review. So, I mean, we're seeing every detail. The only thing that's been redacted would be the actual pay to an employee. You know what payroll is, just know how much to each employee.
And all that paperwork that's submitted to the city is subject to open records.
Yeah.
So a citizen could pull all the information they wanted the EDC gave the city via open records request to the city.
Shay, is that part on Facebook, on the website?
If it's in our meeting agenda,
Okay. I don't know if it is or not.
I don't,
not.
does
CIA.
that still make the leap to the public's request to the EDC? Or is that just the relationship between the city and the EDC? Is that, is it public, if the public makes a request, which is what's going on?
Yeah, if the public's making a request, they ought to make that request to the city.
Okay, so that request should come to the city and not the EDC?
Correct.
Okay,
We have all the details now.
okay. So there shouldn't be any more grumblings about non-transparency and all of that entails?
If there's information that somebody needs and it is subject to the Open Meetings Act, or the Open Records Act, we will certainly provide that or request it from the EDC if we don't have it.
Thank you.
Anybody else? Okay. Item 4, consent docket.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? Roll call.
Boyd,
Yes.
Nelson,
Yes.
Ellsworth,
Yes.
Grayson,
Yes.
Ashante Alexander,
Yes.
Curtis,
Yes.
Mosley.
Yes. Item 6, discussion and consideration items. There is a lettering issue you may have noticed on there, and I just have to say, read each one individually without the alpha in front of it, and we're good to go. Okay.
Yes.
Okay. The first one is discussion, consideration, and possible action to surplus three police department vehicles and utilize Purple Wave auction services.
I move to take action to surplus 3 police department vehicles and utilize Purple Wave auction services.
Second.
Any discussion? Roll call.
Nelson,
Yes.
Ellsworth,
Yes.
Grayson,
Yes.
Ashante Alexander,
Yes.
Curtis,
Yes.
Boyd,
Yes.
Mosley.
Yes. Discussion, consideration, and possible action to approve the Food for Fines amnesty program for the library.
I move to approve waiving of fines for the month of December 2023 for the Food for Fines program at the library.
Second.
Any discussion? Roll call.
Hibblethwaite.
Yes.
Grayson.
Yes.
Ashante Alexander.
Yes.
Curtis.
Yes.
Boyd.
Yes.
Nelson.
Yes.
Mosley.
Yes. Discussion, consideration, and possible action to surplus computer CPUs and monitors from the library and utilize after-tech computer recycling.
Move that we surplus computers and monitors from the library that we are no longer usable.
Second.
Any discussion? Roll call.
Grayson.
Yes.
Ashante Alexander.
Yes.
Curtis.
Yes.
Boyd.
Yes.
Nelson.
Yes.
Hibblethwaite.
Yes.
Mosley.
Yes. Discussion, consideration, and possible action to approve the grant qualifications for 406 Chickasha Avenue for applicant Weston DePriest.
I move that we approve the grant qualifications for 406 Chickasha Avenue for applicant Weston DePriest.
Second.
Discussion?
This is just to verify that the address in question is eligible for the grant program, correct? Yeah. It'll still come back before us before any disbursement happens.
For the work ethic, would you say? For the actual-
It'll come back before us before we, pay out anything, correct?
Okay. Any other questions, comments?
I've got a question on the, so it says, it was seconded by Tim Elliott, but it has him listed as voting no. Is that correct, or
We probably made a motion second to
discuss?
discuss, kind of like we do here.
Yeah.
So you can second it and still vote no or yes. Is this the, Jim, you want to speak? Get some questions.
I couldn't hear the exact question, but I can tell you there's a lot of scrutiny by the EDC board on every grant that we receive. And not every vote is unanimous. There may be someone that just doesn't agree with what they're doing, even if it fits in the grant qualifications. Much like City Council, sometimes you all see things a little bit differently. But it did pass, and the process now, it takes more time than it has before. I think that's a good thing. We try to work closely with the Rachel and code enforcement and city inspections to make sure that everything's being turned in actually has been done. The city is inspected to say, yes, they did this. So I know the process takes a while, but the EDC meets the second Tuesday of every month. If we get a grant 2 days after that board meeting, then it doesn't get on till the next month. Then once we vote on it, it's got to line up with council. And so there's things that can delay this a little bit, but both of the grants, or this one that we're talking about right now, they were both looked into earlier this year. The grant process can be difficult to understand for the property owner, trying to understand what they can do and what they can't do. But this first, what you're looking at tonight is to vote on whether this qualifies. Is it in the downtown district that's defined by the grant, and did it produce a business that generates sales tax?
Just like the case that Kelly mentioned earlier, so if this gets approved, all it does is bookmark that amount of funds for this project. Now, say it comes back before us and we say no for whatever reason, this and that, those funds, and this may answer your question about earlier, those funds then go back into the pot, correct?
That is correct, and we actually met in the city offices this afternoon and talked a little bit about that. We realized that the downtown grant funds that are earmarked are declining, and I think it may have been said at the last city council meeting, there's a finite amount of money. So as that pot shrinks down in terms of how much is available, there's a lot more scrutiny. It's like, is this, you know, we want to make sure everything is done exactly right, because at some point these grant funds will be all distributed and there won't be any more left to apply for.
The 406, because that building's in two parts, isn't it? In like east side and west side. And the 406 is at the east side of the building.
Yes.
It's going to be,
Fifth Street Unique Boutique is currently in that location. Allstate Insurance used to be there.
okay, all right.
The
that
other
tells me.
suite is like a very tiny little half. It used to be a nail studio.
Okay.
But it's probably not more than 150 square feet.
So it's
a
tiny.
closet.
Good luck if it's 40 square feet.
Okay, 40 square feet. Yeah, it's
40
tiny.
square feet.
It was just a little suite they blocked off to have a nail studio. It's tiny.
Okay.
Jim, was this, this was, your letter in here is August 8th. I'm a little confused by the date on the top, it's February 14, 2023.
I'm
But
thinking that was a typo, my apologies.
must be. Maybe you're talking about September, I don't know, but.
That's just a typo on my part.
So this would have been after the changes to the grant program?
These grants, this one and then the other one that's on the agenda, are still on the old grant form because this process started back several months ago. Just recently, maybe a month ago, the council approved changes to the grant form that we recognized we needed to, it needed to be clearer. It needed to be easier for everybody to understand. But we still haven't received anything with that new form yet. So this is still that old form that was done, I believe, in 2019 that we've edited, but when these applications were made, it was still on the old form.
So the very next one will be on the new?
The next new one we get, yes, sir.
Okay. Thanks.
So is this one already open? Or is this one finished already? Or no?
It is. It is done, but again, the process started when the grant application started before he started work.
Yeah, you guys approved them. You guys approved them for the grant process prior to them doing the work, correct?
Just as it was beginning, yes, yes.
So when were the changes, when did we vote on the changes for that? Do you remember?
It's been about
Last
a month.
Okay. I just noticed.
The grant program?
With the last one?
First
Yeah,
meeting in
when
October.
we voted on the changes to the wording.
That was,
I think it was the first meeting in October.
that sounds about right. Yeah, that'd be
The 3rd
about
of
right.
October.
About, 5 weeks ago.
So if the application was notarized on August 18th, it should be under the old rules, correct?
Right, yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
that's what Jim was just saying.
Yeah, this is old rule stuff here.
And this grant document that you're looking at, you'll see there's a phrase in there that by the time, once they start the process, once it's approved by city council in that says, yes, you're in these boundaries, it qualifies, they have 18 months to complete it. So some get it done right away, others are more speculative in their buildings. They buy a building and they don't know what they want to do. They kind of do, but they'll start the process. So you're going to see different. There's nothing that says you have to have all this in by a certain time. We're looking at what are they doing with the building? Is it in the downtown district? Are they producing sales tax? And are they making improvements overall? So with the finished product, looks better for our whole city.
But at the end of the day, tonight, it's just making sure that it's within the left and right parameters that we've set forth. And if we never pay out a dime, we never pay out a dime. This is just saying, yes, the address qualifies.
Yeah, no, and I understand that, but the issue I'm having is they've already got it open, they're already done, they've done the work, but you don't bring it before us to approve it that it's in the correct location until they're done, whereas it should have been brought to us as soon as they sent. Why was it not, when was it, August or something?
July, I think.
There's several factors that come into play when the grant process starts. So the applicant will typically try to understand, what do I have to do? How much per square foot can I spend? And they try to understand all that information. Then they will make a business decision on whether they believe they're going to qualify or not. When we look at it, we try to go through that process as well and say, look, from what we can see, according to what you're telling us, you will qualify that you're in this district and you produce sales tax. Whether you get reimbursed, that depends upon whether did you do everything you said you were going to do. Do you have a tenant?
Yeah, but I mean, what I'm saying is because part of this form is still saying, because they were on the other one, that, you're not to approve anything prior to the grant approval. You shouldn't do any work on your building. It's just like the last one. But the problem is, we could approve it and say it's eligible because of the location. We can approve it as soon as they send it to you, but you don't get it to us for 2 or 3, however many, a month or 2 later after they've already done the work. You see what I'm saying?
I understand your concern. There's several factors that could delay when you all actually see it. And that, I want to go back, and again, as we work with the city, when does the city get it? When can they get it on council agenda? Maybe the council agenda is already, there's multiple factors to consider as to the timing of it. The ultimate goal is, when you think about it, and I think a couple of you were on council whenever this form was done, the goal was to try to develop downtown and provide an incentive. The concern was downtown wasn't going to develop as quickly as was hoped unless there was an incentive.
I'm looking at the date, like July the 7th. That's the date that Mr. DePriest filled it out. And I don't know when the next EDC meeting would have been. It could have been the 6th. And so it's a 30-day delay for for it to show up in August, the day before the EDC. Or it could have been 2 days later and just didn't make that posted agenda time. That's kind of the weird catches. I don't have I can't look at the calendar to see when that was exactly.
I think the other thing to consider is when you look at the document yourself, and maybe the city attorney could weigh in on this better, but I don't know that there's any wording in this original grant document from 2019 that says you can't start any work on it until it's been approved by city council.
Let me go back to where you finished up. Jim's good point is they can start the work if they want. It's all speculation at that point. If they're intent on doing the project, they're going to do the project.
Yeah.
And then it's just speculation if they get any type of reimbursement.
But my question would be then, why would someone start a project that they're not for sure they're going to get paid on it?
Well, they're starting the project because they want the project. If they get reimbursement, that's bonus. If they don't get reimbursement, they still do their project. They can't, if I was going to start a business, I would not even be concerned about the $20 a square foot from opening or closing a business, because I would base my model on the business being able to carry the entire debt load. On this, like in this right here, Mr. DePriest, he may have known who's going to be in there. He knew the rent, he knew his expense was going to be.
Mm-hmm.
And so he said, well, I know with the revenue coming in and this expense, it will make money for me. But I'm going to apply for the grant anyway, but I know I can make it without the grant. So I'm going to apply for the grant, and if I get grant, then that's even better. I think that's that'd be the speculation I think he would take, if that makes sense. He knows the project's going to work, so he's going to do the project anyway. So the grant would just be the speculative bonus if it works out that way or not.
The financial risk is going to be on the developer at that point, not on
Right,
the city.
yeah.
But I think if we look at what the citizen, in terms of concerns that I've heard from citizens, is that deals are being made without it coming to the council being totally aware of what's going on. These are the concerns that I'm getting from citizens about what's going on. And the issue is transparency.
Absolutely.
That's the issue. Now, I'm not saying anybody's doing anything wrong, but I'm simply saying there's got to be a better way to be more transparent. So what people are perceiving is not what people are working under. That's out there. That's out there. How do we fix that?
You know, I don't know. I talked to an industry in a town south of here, that they were looking at Chickasha one time and opted not to, and they built it in another community. I'm like, well, what about the downtown grant program? And, because this is about a year ago that they were looking, and they said, what program are you talking about? And I said, well, if you contacted the EDC, they probably could have told you about it. You know, a lot of it is doing your own investigative work as an individual to look for that type of stuff.
I think my issue is that I'm for the downtown grant. I think it's a great program. I think it's worked. We just have to follow these rules. I mean, they're in black and white. And Amanda, is there an issue with this? Is it late, or that it's already done and we're just now approving it, or do you?
I've not previously been asked to review this agreement. I mean, my version has number 5 highlighted, but again, I've not reviewed it in depth.
Okay. I just think we need to follow these.
I think the liability, like Brian, I understand where you're coming from. Some of the liability, all the liability goes upon the developer. And if they want to start work before a grant is approved, they're going to start the work. Now, the grant process will say, we can reimburse for this, we can reimburse for that, and that would be still more speculation on the developer, whether he wants to take that risk or not. Moving forward. That's all
I'm just worried about setting a precedent for.
Yeah, no, I get you.
For grant program applications.
When it comes back to us for payment, isn't that when we say, yeah, we're not approving
Yeah,
that?
but I wouldn't even, I mean, if it's not gonna work, why would we just?
Well, yeah, I think if we did that, they brought for us for payment and all the speculation, we approved the project, I think we open ourselves up for a problem by saying, no, we're not gonna reimburse for that. I mean, it's kind of the language of the contract, really.
Our precedence that we've set is to approve these.
Yeah.
We've always done that. So now.
Well, we've always done that, but typically, Zach, they have not been open for business and already done when they were approved for the grant process.
Well, the project was approved
When
before
the
the grant
project was
process.
approved, they hadn't done it, they haven't opened anything.
Yeah.
And that's my only deal. It's just, it's the same as the other one that I raised a flag on. And, I mean, not that I don't want to give these guys money that's there, it's just the rules were there, and I don't know why we're just now approving them when they've already,
Approving the project.
they've already,
Yeah,
we're just now approving
I
the
get you.
project.
Totally, I understand
When
completely.
they weren't, they've already finished their job.
Yeah.
They've already done their stuff, and I'd like to see them get the money. I mean, it'd help them out. I understand all that. But that's why I'm asking, okay, you got August, and now we're in November. I mean, shoot, we could have had it by October now. Maybe they already had the job done. I don't know when Fifth Street Boutiques opened. I mean, it wasn't too long ago, I think.
It wasn't too long ago.
Yeah.
I'm trying to understand what rules you're referring to that we're not following that.
The one that's highlighted on our agenda here, the same one I brought up with Roberto's. It's the same rule as that, because it says that prior to grant approval, or if they do any of these qualifying things prior to grant approval, they shall not receive the grant funding. That's the rule I'm talking about. It's the same one I brought up with Roberto's.
But if you read that, that's why I highlighted
Was it prior
that.
grant
That's what they
approval?
fixed, because it's very contradicting. Number 5, because the first part specifically says it all has to be complete to meet the requirements. So that's what we're approving today. And then the last sentence, they, to me personally, I think it's hard to understand, because that's what Jim and I talked about them correcting. And that's why he presented last council, because
Yeah.
I think that's a completely contradicting number, because it doesn't make any sense to me personally.
Under
That's what
that
they fixed.
interpretation, you
Because
would
I
never
think-
fund the
I
grant.
think the point was to make sure that it didn't apply to like a roof they did maybe like 5 years ago, but it's not worded very well.
Well, maybe so. But by the wording, that's saying grant funding. But then grant approval is totally different than the funding. So we're working on approval right now. And that's, the details are in that wording, and that's my only issue is it's funding versus approval. We're at the approval process right now, and it specifically states in the bottom that if it's done prior to approval, then we're not to put out any funds. And I understand we've changed that.
So we've got, the way it reads in 5, correct me if I'm wrong, Rachel, because I get corrected a lot. On item 5, it says, all reimbursements for grant funding, we can't pay those basically until the completion of the project. Is that the way I read that first sentence? And then that last one that's highlighted, it says, basically says improvements, you know, including, and it gives the detail what they are, of any kind prior to grant approval shall not receive grant funding. So if the grant hasn't been approved, we can't issue any funds. But the other one says, unless the project's completed, we can't issue any funds. So it's kind of like, it's two very restrictive rules that kind of bump into each other a little bit.
This is exactly
What she
what
was saying.
fixed
So
it.
if you were to take the whole thing literal,
Gotcha.
you'd never pay out anything.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, as long as.
So you
as long
approve
as
the
it's
project
approved,
and you wait.
As long as it's approved,
Everybody, you know.
as long as it's came before us and been approved prior to them doing the work, then when it comes to funding, after Rachel and them inspect it, then we can fund it. But these have already been done prior to being approved, so according to the word, you can't do it.
Approval is at EDC, approval is city up.
It's not clear, because this is a new process, so that's part of the
Well, I
issue
guess-
here.
It's EDC contract right here.
Yeah,
So I think
that
it
does say
would,
the
it would go
CEDC.
before EDC,
okay.
when it would be approved by the EDC that date. And then we would have, man,
It's a lot of gray.
it's a lot of
Come on,
approvals.
Amanda. Chime in.
If you look at the intent.
Making our own, we're jumping in our own boiling water.
I just want to go back to the intent of this grant and understand the language. I agree with you, it's not clear, and that, again, that's why we suggested the changes that you all approved. If you look at the intent, what downtown Chickasha looks like now, it looks very different than it did in 2019.
Absolutely.
In
Oh, yeah,
2019, that
no
language,
doubt.
it was probably just good enough, let's just get something going.
But they were also bigger projects, and they were approved prior to getting funding now. I mean, so yeah. But there is the CEDC board, which is you guys, right?
I'm the EDC director, but I answer to a board, yes, sir.
So there is the CEDC board in front of that.
Yes, it is.
So that doesn't say council approval.
Right.
So I'm just trying to.
Well, they're
legalese, you know.
the third-party contractor to
Yeah.
administrate that program. We just have the checkbook.
Yeah, I'm just
And
making
so,
sure that I'm
through
clear.
Rachel's department, they go through, before we can reimburse, have the building permits been pulled, have the inspections been made, have they been approved, have there been recommendations that Darren makes, and they're completed, then we release funds at that point. But really, it looks like if the EDC hasn't approved the project according to paragraph 5, then there's nothing to bring to us for approval. That, well, it's kind of how I see it. Okay.
That made my head hurt.
Hey,
It
Jim.
does.
It is.
Jim?
And downtown grant program has been, I mean, it's been a good thing. I mean, we've got some great things going on as a result of it. It just shows,
On the next page, it talks about finalizing the grant. At what point does the grant fulfillment agreement kick in? On the bottom of the next page, there's a finalizing the grant. It's like the last paragraph.
the grant fulfillment agreement, is that signed grant fulfillment agreement?
So for the grant to be completely finished out, the developer has to produce invoices and canceled checks, and it all has to match up with whatever they submitted within their budget.
Oh, here it is.
And so we go through and review all that, and then if everything lines up, then we recommend the council to be reimbursed. Once it's reimbursed, then sometimes, like we looked at the history of this program, and there were some grants, and they applied for $1 amount, but they spent a little less, so their grant reimbursement were a little bit less, and we took those leftover funds that they'd been approved for, but they didn't spend, and those got reallocated back into the grant.
That happened before the approval? I'm sorry.
Well, no, after the fact. Like if someone gets approved for up to $65,000, but when they spend everything, they didn't actually spend that much, so they didn't get reimbursed they got reimbursed for
Right.
less than what they had been approved for.
Yep.
So the city was carrying on its books how much had been approved for.
That goes back into the pool. Again.
Right, but they actually spent less, so the city didn't reimburse them
Yep.
for that
Okay.
entire amount.
Okay.
And I'm sorry you guys have to mess with this. I really am. I wish it was so much clearer. The goal is to provide incentives to developers that otherwise would not buy the building or would not, or if they own it, they wouldn't develop it into something else.
No, I
And
understand,
so
Jim.
the intent was good, the goal was good, but I understand the concern about language, and that's why we made the recommendations.
The good thing is we do have people developing. That's the win. We just got to work on our view.
But not only that, they're developing and the rent is low enough that people can afford to put business
Right,
in there.
it helps subsidize that rent. But we may not have the traffic flow of a 500,000 population city.
It's,
Well,
it's a very lengthy, cumbersome process, and
agree.
the EDC is part of that's on us, but we're trying to do due diligence and make sure we understand, and then part of it is also the process that we go through with the city and how all it lines up. It's not a quick thing. So both of these projects were started this year, and they're trying to wrap up. And if approved tonight, for example, the way the calendar falls, the EDC would put these on, assuming they have all their documented check stubs and everything. We would put that on our agenda for next Tuesday. Then if it gets approved, then it would come back to you for reimbursement at the next council meeting, assuming that there's room on the agenda for it.
see, and that's what we're not used to. We're not used to approval and then turning around within the next meeting, paying out, because most of the projects have been huge.
Yeah,
You're right.
massive projects, yeah.
Most projects have been much bigger. It's also pretty neat, though, when you see some just real small businesses open up from this thing.
That's what I thought this was. I mean, originally, this is what I envisioned when we started this, that, small, mom and pop or whatever, would be opening up, and this would help them out, get the ball rolling for them. That's what
Yeah,
that's why I didn't like, the wording. I was like, oh, crap. But
yeah.
Well, it's kind of like when you bring a big box into a strip center, the other stores follow along with it. And it's kind of what's happened here 4 or 5 years ago. The bigger ones came in, and the other ones are now catching part of their activity.
Some of that
Amanda, I mean-
timeline is on me, though, because I wanted to make sure Jim had an opportunity to present to council, and then, full transparency, this is obviously not the only thing on my desk. So it gets on the council agenda, as fast as I can get it there, because I want to verify also from the city, full transparency, I want to make sure that we've been in the building and we've actually verified that is actually what's going on. That's the goal here. And so I don't want to put it on an agenda until I really feel that we've verified those things.
You cut Rachel some slack. She has $43 million in building permits.
But she did use the word that we are working towards, and as we entered into a new contract, it's like, how do we go above and beyond to make sure that communication that's happening now between the EDC and Rachel's office, that's a new thing, but it slows this process down a little bit.
yeah. So, Amanda, do you have a comment on that? I mean, because with the
I'm just wondering if it would be better if we're just approving that the address is, falls under this grant, if, as soon as it's approved by the EDC, if it comes here for approval, if we're not approving that they get money, we're just approving.
We're approving address,
So
and then
it would
we
go
would.
straight from, instead of waiting several months and then bringing it to us.
Okay.
And then we would reimburse if everything lined up right.
Right, yeah, off Rachel's office.
So we would get this as soon as it's approved from the EDC, that way.
Okay, so if they approve it 1 week, then
We would approve
first
it.
available meeting, they would approve it, come over to council.
Right, and then,
Okay.
then the approval or the reimbursement would be if everything lined up, right? That way there wouldn't be any question, we would know.
Our goal will be that if a grant, this downtown grant gets approved in an EDC board meeting, that within 2 business days, we would be sending a letter over to the city manager requesting it to be put on council agenda. And we've been close to that, okay? And again, I know there's some delays, but
So if we find a discrepancy in something, do you not want that until the second round? Because there was discrepancies for a few of them that we had to have contractors go back out and relook at things because we
Right.
were said things were done that weren't ever communicated to us that were done. So there was extra
For like
permits
the
that had to be
reimbursement?
obtained.
The reimbursement portion or the approval portion?
This first portion,
Oh, okay.
because we had, so that's another concern. And we'll do it however, I guess you guys, and we can talk about it later, but
Right.
that was why, that's why there's a delay. I'm trying to vet that.
I agree. I just trying to figure out a better way to get this process going faster. And
So me too, if a developer comes and says, hey, I want to spend money in Chickasha, I want to buy a building, I love what's going on, and I want to be a part of this, well, gosh, we're open arms, okay, well, here's our grant process, and try to talk them through a little bit of it. So our goal's the same. I just feel like there's been a little bit of in these last couple of grants, the process has slowed down a little bit, and I understand the concerns, but ultimately I believe that it long-term will be good as we wind down this grant probably in the next, 12 months or so.
Yeah.
Jim, one last thing. On the last page of this agenda item, there is a grant fulfillment agreement.
Yep.
For $50,000. Is that what's being sought? Because the page before it, page 74, shows a budget summary of $36,928.53.
That was just the budget, I believe. The actual costs were the $36,928.
So when they seek reimbursement, will it be the 36 then with the receipts and everything that?
Yes, sir.
Okay, all right.
How many square feet, what's the square footage of that building?
3260.
3260, so 64,000 is the most we get, okay.
It was kind of conflicting at first. In the first part of that, there was a $65,000.
Well, that's what
But
they're
that-
approved for.
That's kind of what I was talking about. Sometimes they put a budget out there and then, believe it or not, it comes in under, or they make a business decision not to do something they originally were planning on, and so the amount comes in a little bit less.
It's allowed up to $20 per
So we
square
don't
foot,
we don't leave, pay out a
Thank you.
percentage of that.
I think, or something like that.
Because we're subject to $20 a foot of
Gotcha.
200 square feet.
Gotcha.
Thanks, Jim. Any more discussion?
So,
What?
I guess we're good, but, I mean, I feel bad because I voted no on the last. one.
Yeah,
Because
there's a
that
lot
issue.
of,
I mean, I owe them an apology.
we're kind of rock and hard place kind of in a way.
You're going off of what
Well,
you
no,
knew.
yeah, so, okay.
Okay, roll call, please.
Ashante Alexander,
yes.
Gertis,
Yes.
Boyd,
Yes.
Nelson,
Yes.
Ebblethwaite,
Yes.
Grayson,
Yes.
Mosley.
Yes. Discussion, consideration, and possible action to approve the qualification for Central Business District Building Grant for 301 West Chickasha Avenue for GPP LLC.
I move that we approve the qualification grant for Central Business District Building Grant. My words are confused. Let me start again.
I second whatever she said.
What she meant to say.
Oh, Lord, help me. Okay, I move that we approve the qualification for Central Business District Building Grant for 301 West Chickasha Avenue for GPP LLC.
Second.
Thank you, Zach.
Discussion? Roll call?
Gertis,
Yes.
Boyd,
Yes.
Nelson,
Yes.
Ebblethwaite,
Yes.
Grayson,
Yes.
Ashante Alexander,
Yes.
Mosley.
Yes. Item 7, motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
Oh, sorry, we're adjourned. A little quick on the gavel. I'd like to call the Chickasha Municipal Authority to order. I need a roll call, please.
Boyd,
Here.
Nelson,
Here.
Ebblethwaite,
Here.
Grayson,
Here.
Ashante Alexander,
Here.
Curtis,
Here.
Mosley.
Here. Item 2, consent docket.
So moved. Second.
Any discussion? Roll call.
Boyd,
Yes?
Nelson,
Yes.
Ebblethwaite,
Yes.
Grayson,
Yes.
Ashanti Alexander,
Yes.
Curtis,
Yes.
Mosley.
Yes. Item 4, motion for adjournment.
So moved.
Second?
We're adjourned. I'd like to call to order the Chickasha Municipal Airport Authority. Roll call, please.
Boyd,
Here.
Nelson,
Here.
Ebblethwaite,
Here.
Grayson,
Here.
Ashanti Alexander,
Here.
Curtis,
Here.
Mosley.
Here. Item 2, consent docket.
Move we accept as presented.
Second.
Discussion. Roll call.
Boyd,
Yes?
Nelson,
Yes.
Ebblethwaite,
Yes.
Grayson,
Yes.
Ashanti Alexander,
Yes.
Curtis,
Yes.
Mosley.
Yes. Item 4, discussion, consideration, and possible action to approve pay request number 2 in the amount of $252,620.76, rehabilitate runway 1836 and taxiways to Tri-City Seal Company, Inc.
Move to approve pay request number 2 in the amount of $252,620.76 to rehabilitate runway 18-36 and taxiways to Tri-City Seal Company Incorporated.
Second.
Discussion.
Yeah, who's checking the work of this contractor or signing off on it from the city?
Is that Darren?
We had Toby Baker from Park Hill Engineering with us, and the contractor, we had a representative from the Oklahoma Aeronautics Commission. His name has changed to the Oklahoma Department of Aviation, ODAA, anyway, it's the state agency. And Darren and I were with them when we did the final inspection. There were some very minor touch-up things that the contractor needed to do, a little bit of gravel that needed to be removed, and when I say a little bit, like a shovelful. And then there was one spalling area of concrete that they needed to provide some patching to, but it was less than a 6-inch by 6-inch piece. So we did a pretty thorough inspection with the engineers and the state folks, and feel good about the work that was done.
So do we require them to, sign off on a punch list and
Yeah.
all the proceedings? Okay, thanks.
Okay. Anything else? Roll call.
Nelson,
Yes.
Ebblethwaite,
Yes.
Grayson,
Yes.
Ashanti Alexander,
Yes.
Curtis,
Yes.
Boyd,
Yes?
Mosley.
Yes. Item 5, motion for adjournment.
So moved?
Second?
Second. All right.
Second?
We're adjourned.